I have found myself frustrated watching movies where an empowered female character's clothing reduces her to a sexual object, or in many cases, is entirely unrealistic to the character's actions throughout the movie. Superhero movies often sexualize their heroines' costumes for the viewer's pleasure, contradicting the feminist message they attempt to communicate through the character. So what does effective costume design look like? How can costume designers realistically and effectively convey a female character's development and agency through their clothing? There is very limited existing literature on critical film analysis focused on costume design and connected to character agency. Film critics and analysts primarily use Lacanian film analysis. Jacques Lacan was essentially the 20th century French Freud, conceptualizing identity formation through a post-structuralist lens. Post-structuralism is a theoretical framework that emerged in the 20th century in response to structuralism. Post-structuralism analyzes the fluidity of meaning-making and how it's informed by many factors, especially power dynamics and context. Lacanian film analysis applies Lacan's concepts of the mirror stage, where the viewer identifies with the characters or cinematic images as a reflection of their idealized self, creating a sense of unity or coherence, as well as the role of the gaze, and how films can manipulate the spectator's perspective to evoke feelings of control, alienation, or desire. In 1975, film scholar Laura Mulvey took a feminist approach to Lacanian film analysis, discussing the male gaze and the objectification of women in film in her iconic book, Visual and Other Pleasures. While there are major connections between older feminist film criticism and costume design studies, Mulvey's foundational work is strictly foundational. Mulvey herself later commented on visual pleasure, saying it was, quote, very archaic and an object that belongs to its own time, an obsolescent object which people go on looking at because they like it. Many contemporary film and fashion scholars have expanded upon Mulvey's work and modernized its dated elements. Another post-structuralist perspective can be drawn from Michel Foucault's concepts surrounding the relationship between power and knowledge, which could provide an important contribution to critical film studies, particularly in the form of characters' agency in film. There is an absence of integrated contemporary film theory that isn't dated back to Lacan and Mulvey's critical lenses. Today, I will connect feminist film criticism, Lacanian film analysis, and Foucault's post-structuralist frameworks to two films, Sofia Coppola's Priscilla and Karen Kusama's Jennifer's Body, to explore how costume functions as a tool for female agency in film. Sofia Coppola's latest movie, Priscilla, tells the story of Elvis and Priscilla Presley's relationship based on Priscilla Presley's memoir, Elvis and Me. The film's costume designer, Stacey Batat, has costumed 5 of Coppola's 10 films. Batat created over 120 costumes for Priscilla's character to follow her character progression through the decades. Laura Mulvey used psychoanalytic frameworks to create the concept of the male gaze in cinema. Mulvey says, going far beyond highlighting a woman's to-be-looked-atness, cinema builds the way she is to be looked at into the spectacle itself. Cinematic codes create a gaze, a world, and an object, thereby producing an illusion cut to the moment of desire. Priscilla both subverts and applies to Mulvey's concept of the male gaze. Priscilla's looks aren't crafted for the male viewer's pleasure, but they are crafted for Elvis's pleasure within the film's narrative. Elvis's level of control over Priscilla is represented through her outfits. Through Batat's eyes, the way Priscilla is presented in the film is how Elvis saw her or wanted to see her. Priscilla wasn't necessarily a person to Elvis. She was his ideal woman, but not her own person. She was more of his accessory. Coppola is known for her romanticized representations of girlhood for the female gaze. Batat was able to collaborate with Coppola to create an intersection between Elvis's gaze of Priscilla and Priscilla's view of herself. The opening scene sets the tone for Priscilla's maintenance of her look. We see her looking in the mirror, applying eyeliner, fake eyelashes, lipstick, and nail polish. She gets dressed very carefully as if she's being watched. The opening scene is set somewhat in the middle of the film's plot, which we can identify from Priscilla's hair and makeup. At that point in the story, she is dressing for Elvis's, and they're in the male gaze. In the first section of the film, when Priscilla is 14, she wears modest long skirts and high-necked dresses and blouses, small cardigans, saddle shoes, and no makeup. Her early color palette is all baby blue, pastel pink, and pastel green, reminiscent of her youth. Her early wardrobe doesn't appeal to any specific gaze. Her simple school attire fits into her life in Germany with her family. She isn't yet concerned with dressing for Elvis's aesthetic. Before going to Elvis's first party, her mother helps her pick out an outfit. She whines about her clothes not being suited for the party. During Priscilla's first visit to Memphis, she packs baby doll nightgowns in all shades of pink. She primps herself in the bathroom mirror before Elvis comes into the bedroom the first night, staring in the mirror, putting on perfume, and taking deep breaths. This is, again, one of her behaviors informed by the male gaze. This performance could be interpreted as anti-feminist and appealing to the male gaze, although Coppola's masterful cinematography conveys the unfortunate reality. Priscilla was groomed by Elvis at a very young age, causing her to shape her choices around him. Throughout Priscilla's early days in Graceland, she's only fully dressed up when Elvis is home. Coppola and Batat envisioned Priscilla being more herself when she was in pants. When Elvis was away, she wore simpler clothes, especially pants, and only then was she dressing for herself. Though we still see her maintaining her appearance at home, painting her toenails, walking around the house in pumps, and so on. She is also shown wearing makeup in bed, and she's never seen wearing pajamas outside of the bedroom. This was a direct reference to Priscilla's memoir.
We always dressed up. Elvis never liked that feeling or look as being too relaxed.
Priscilla was constantly under the microscope for her appearance, sometimes from Elvis's direct gaze, but often from his implied gaze while she spent exorbitant amounts of time alone in Graceland. When Priscilla goes into labor, there's a relatively silent clip of her putting on eyeliner and fake eyelashes, looking into her compact while Elvis and his family panic downstairs. Batat describes this scene as Elvis and Priscilla belonging to the public. I mean, to a certain extent, they belong to the public. I think you see that when she's putting her makeup on before she goes to have her baby. She goes to deliver the baby in go-go boots. When she comes out of the hospital, there's cameras there and her hair's done. I guess that's the public part of them, right? They belong to the public. Priscilla wasn't only under Elvis's gaze, she was under the public eye as well. Batat and her team recreated Priscilla's real bright pink dress when she was leaving the hospital. The story spans from 1959 to 1972, one of modern fashion's richest transitional eras. Batat described Priscilla's style progression, saying,
"In the 50s, I'd say she's childish. In the early 60s, I might say she's curious. In the mid, to end of 60s, I'd say she's questioning. And in the 70s, I'd say she's liberated."
Gender studies professor Adrian Munich extrapolated the idea of the look from Mulvey's concept of the gaze. According to Mulvey, mainstream cinema is in the business of delivering pleasure to men by relaying the gaze of the male character to the camera and then to the male spectator. Batat created a cohesive look for Priscilla to communicate her aging and the shifting power dynamic between her and Elvis. Near the beginning of the film, Priscilla's style begins to slowly evolve when she starts going to Elvis's parties while he's stationed in Germany. Her first party outfit is very youthful, while her second outfit looks like it was borrowed from her mother. This is an early example in the film of Priscilla's experimentation with gender performance. Clothing is often tied to gender performativity, which was famously studied by philosopher Judith Butler. Butler claims there is a key misunderstanding about gender performance. That gender is a choice, or that gender is a role, or that gender is a construction that one puts on as one puts on clothing in the morning, that there is a one who is prior to this gender, a one who goes to the wardrobe of gender and decides with deliberation which gender it will be today. Priscilla explores an older, more feminine identity to fit in with Elvis and his crowd. Although her mother's pumps, her neater hair, and her makeup aren't gendered on their own, the way that she uses them is gendered. She's trying to appeal to Elvis's taste. Butler says, the effect of gender is produced through stylization of the body, constituting the illusion of an abiding gendered self. Butler's ideas surrounding performance and performativity have helped scholars analyze the intersection between fashion and performance. Elvis and Priscilla go to Las Vegas during her first visit to Memphis. Her one-shoulder blue gown is her first adult look, even though she's still very much a teenager. When Priscilla officially moves to Graceland, Elvis takes full control over her wardrobe.
Black hair and more eye makeup will make your eyes stand out more.
The makeover scene is the first overt representation of Elvis's control over her appearance. Priscilla tries on a variety of outfits in front of Elvis and the Memphis Mafia, hearing their commentary.
I like this one.
Oh, solid suit you better. I hate brown. It reminds me of the army.
Even though she argues back to him about the maturity of the clothing, she still doesn't resist his insistence. Elvis is her entire world at this point. he alienated her from her family, making friends, and leaving Graceland. Priscilla's makeover shows the importance of her new look. Munich emphasizes the importance of the look, saying, "Look in a film most obviously refers to an ensemble of visual signs in attire that orients the viewer by its simultaneous strangeness and familiarity, and at a glance conveys meanings." When we get Priscilla's makeover reveal, she looks starkly different, even though we as the audience associate the jet black bouffant and the large cat eye look with Priscilla's signature look in real life. Munich explained the significance of makeover sequences in film, saying, "Major costume changes and makeover sequences in film deconstruct sexuality as a fluid spectrum as easily malleable as changing one's hat, clothes, or wig. With each moment comes the possibility of dress-up and makeover. Costume design touches our innate reactions to clothes and all of their details, shape, color, texture, aspects which augment, indeed almost stand in for, our perceptions of sex, authority, and comfort, discomfort, and stature." Shortly after Priscilla's makeover, we see a brief montage of her arranging outfits from the clothes Elvis picked out for her, with matching handguns, showing how Priscilla is another one of his shiny possessions. Although her behavior does not change much from before and after her makeover, she is now fully under Elvis's control. Many film theorists maintain a Lacanian lens when studying power dynamics in film. Film theorist Joan Kopiec claims that Lacanian film theorists confuse Lacan's work with Michel Foucault's. The gaze is always the point from which identification is conceived by film theory to take place. Foucault's post-structuralist work focused on power and knowledge. His genealogical analysis revolved around the relationship between power and knowledge and how the relationship operates within what he calls discursive formation. To Foucault, discourse is how institutions wield their power through exclusion, intelligibility, and legitimacy. In most of Elvis and Priscilla's relationship, he controls the discourse between their dynamic. Although he isn't an institution per se, his behavior fits into Foucault's discursive formation. He excludes Priscilla from his work and most of the outside world, continuously manipulating and controlling her. Kopiec claims that studying power dynamics within gender differences in film is a misuse of Lacan's work and is instead a reference to Foucault. Mulvey's interpretation, which Kopiec opposes, states, "The power to subject another person to the will sadistically or to the gaze voyeuristically is turned onto the woman as the subject of both. Power is backed by a certainty of legal right and the established guilt of the woman." Power being backed by legal right is in its own discursive formation in Foucault's terms. Elvis has complete financial, and therefore legal, control over Priscilla. His father becomes her legal guardian, which is its own problem, when she moves to Memphis because she was a teenager, and she isn't allowed to have a job. Beyond a gender power imbalance between the two, there is an institutional power imbalance as well. After her makeover, her look is tied to Elvis. Munich explains, "Fashion in film in this usage is costume suggesting a conscious assumption of publicly sanctioned identity. Fashion dictates a look." This idea connects to Lacan's ideas surrounding identity formulation, as well as Foucault's discursive formations using popular fashion as a source of power. Priscilla begins to slowly break away from Elvis's tastes after her makeover. In one scene, she returns home from shopping wearing a dress with a large, colorful floral print. Elvis immediately verbally degrades her for it.
Now, what is that dress? Takes away from your eyes and does nothing for your figure. All you see is a goddamn dress.
Finished?
This is one of Priscilla's first signs of showing agency away from Elvis. She went shopping on her own and was able to style herself to her own tastes. She's confident in her choices, which Elvis completely disregards. He still holds the power in the relationship, belittling her and laughing when she gets upset and yells at him. Film and media scholar Stella Bruzzi's book, Undressing Cinema, explores the intersection between costume, identity, and representation in film. She says, "The endless transformations within female clothing construct female sexuality and subjectivity in ways that are at least potentially disruptive, both of gender and of the symbolic order, which is predicated upon continuity and coherence." Priscilla's changing style truly begins when she gets angrier with Elvis for his cheating and neglect. At one point, Priscilla surprises Elvis in LA when she suspects he's cheating on her. She arrives wearing a bright blue and green floral dress and hat as a sign of rebellion due to his distaste for Prince. She begins to wear more prints from then on, but Batat was careful to diversify her adult wardrobe so as not to imply that her personal style is purely reactive to Elvis's preferences. Once they return home, Elvis throws a tantrum when Priscilla discovers a love letter from another woman. He begins violently throwing her clothes into a suitcase, yelling at her to go home. This again shows his power over her. We see a shift in the couple's power dynamics after their daughter, Lisa Marie, is born. Priscilla goes back to her natural brown hair, wearing it long and straight with more natural makeup. She also starts wearing more pants. As we move into the 70s, the changing style shows how Elvis and Priscilla begin to go down different paths, which is first shown through the 1970 family photo shoot scene, referencing a real family photo. The family photo from 1970 shows their harsh style differences, and Batat described this photo being a turning point in the film and a visual sign that the two have come apart. As Priscilla has gotten older and seen more of the realities of Elvis's world, she harnesses power over herself and her daughter. Her newfound knowledge informs her power. Once Priscilla and Lisa Marie move to Los Angeles, Priscilla begins to come back to herself and discovers what she likes. She starts embracing her natural look with a tan and primarily wearing pants and flowy blouses, much like in the family photo. Her look and her newfound adventurous side is all about her experimenting with what makes her happy and who she is. She also wears less prints in the 70s. Near the end of the film, Priscilla wears a white collared shirt, a denim blazer, and jeans when she tells Elvis she's leaving him in his hotel room in Las Vegas. This outfit is a culmination of the style she's developed on her own and her independence from Elvis. The final shot of the film is Priscilla driving away from Graceland for the last time. Priscilla's style development shows the passage of time as well as her transformation from a shy teenager out of her element into a liberated woman free from her tumultuous relationship with Elvis. We see Priscilla grow both into and out of the male gaze throughout the film. Compared to Priscilla, whose self-empowerment and agency comes from both learning and pulling away from the male gaze, Jennifer from Jennifer's Body is entirely aware of the male gaze from the start and uses that to her benefit, giving her power and agency. Jennifer's Body, directed by Karen Kusama and written by Diablo Cody, has become a feminist cult classic in recent years. Its initial marketing for its release in 2009 largely misrepresented the plot and its target audience. The film is a satire, feminist horror with a target audience of young women. The film tells a story of two teenage girls with an unhealthy homoerotic friendship. Jennifer is sacrificed to Satan by a small indie band, which turns her into a cannibalistic demon, causing her to eat the boys at their high school, further complicating her friendship with her best friend Needy. Jennifer's character is a strong example of Lacan's human development stages, particularly the mirror phase, which is central to film studies. The mirror phase is the moment when we first recognize ourselves in a mirror. On the basis of this recognition, or more properly misrecognition, not the self but an image of the self, we begin to see ourselves as separate individuals, that is, as both subject, self that looks, and object, self that is looked at. According to Lacan, the mirror phase is essential in developing the ego. Lacan argues that the ego allows us to create a fictive sense of unitary selfhood by finding something in the world with which we can identify. These ideologies are reinforced through film. In the literal sense, Jennifer spends a lot of time looking in the mirror. Throughout the movie, the ways in which she looks in the mirror reflect how her sense of self shifts as she becomes more of a demon. Everyone around Jennifer, including herself, reduces her self-worth to her looks, leaving her with a lack of self. She relies on male validation for her self-worth. Mulvey also references the mirror phase in her film studies. The mirror phase gives children joy in recognizing themselves in a mirror image that is more perfect than their own bodily experience. Recognition is thus overlaid with misrecognition. The image recognized is conceived as the reflected body of the self, but its misrecognition as superior projects this body outside itself as an ideal ego. The alienated subject, which reintrojected as an ego ideal, prepares the way for identification with others in the future. The night after she eats one of the first boys, Jennifer calls Needy solely to gloat about how hot she feels. She wears a translucent, tight white V-neck and pink booty shorts as she looks in the mirror, playing with her hair and admiring herself. She recognizes herself as a powerful object of desire. Near the end of the film, we see Jennifer getting ready for the spring formal when she's at her weakest. We see her getting ready in the mirror, messily applying makeup and pulling bits of her hair out. To the side of the mirror, there's a photo of her before she turned into a demon, looking happy, healthy, and beautiful. As she looks back and forth from the photo and her reflection, she both recognizes and misrecognizes herself. She's no longer seeing the misrecognized superior version of herself. Her self-perception shifts throughout the film, which we can see during her many mirror scenes. Film scholars such as Todd McGowan, Stephen Marsh, and Joan Kopiec argue over whether film is a mirror for the audience, as is implied by Lacanian film analysis. McGowan disagrees with the notion that the screen exists as a mirror. Through this lens, the screen is not a mirror for viewers to recognize themselves in the subject, but rather a disruption within spectatorship. McGowan believes that earlier Lacanians limit audience experience to scopophilia rather than forging identification and consequent subjectivity. Scopophilia is the pleasure in looking. Marsh argues that instead of using the screen as a mirror to identify one's sense of self, the spectator is instead hailed by interpolation. Scopophilia is a central element to Jennifer's body and its marketing. Jennifer is introduced performing with the flag team at a school pep rally. Her uniform is more modest than her other costumes in the film, ironically. The uniform is very similar to a cheerleading uniform, a commonly sexualized costume. Her uniform is a form-fitting long-sleeve top with a microskirt and drill team boots. There's continuity problems with that, but we won't get into that. She strongly contrasts Needy on the bleachers. Jennifer is at the center of the formation, while Needy is in the middle of the bleachers smiling at her. The studio capitalized on Megan Fox's looks and marketed the movie to teen boys instead of the female audience it was written for.
I felt like they didn't actually watch the movie. Like, how could they review it the way that they did after having watched the movie? I do feel like obviously it was mismarketed, and I think that's probably, you probably feel a lot of anger about that, right? Or you did at the time, because it was marketed in a way.
Diablo Cody explicitly said, "I wrote it for girls," and yet the marketing team decided to exploit Megan Fox's appearance for the film. Jennifer's flag uniform is sexier in the promotional photos. In one photo, she's wearing a variant of the uniform from the film, but with an incredibly cropped top and a shorter skirt. One of the primary movie posters shows another sexualized red cheer uniform that she never wears in the film. The film studio relied on the politics of pleasure and scopophilia for the commercial success of the film. The marketing team attempted to market within the male gaze, using Megan Fox as a sexual object despite the subject matter of the actual film. Film studies professor Linda Williams discussed the contradictions and problems with Mulvey's famous feminist manifestos. She describes how feminist film scholars of the 1970s and 1980s believed that cinematic visual pleasure was created solely for men to gaze upon the bodies of women on screen. According to the Mulveyan paradigm, if women viewers enjoyed watching films with terrorized, mutilated women, they could only be identifying with a masculine, sadistic point of view. She claims that many current feminist scholars are stuck in this Mulveyan paradigm, struggling to acknowledge the nuance of pleasure in watching something intimate without it necessarily objectifying the subject. There's nothing enjoyable about watching the mutilation of Jennifer when she's being sacrificed. Her sacrifice is an allegory for sexual assault. We're meant to be uncomfortable. Beyond the violence, a Mulveyan scholar would argue that Jennifer's looks and sexy clothes are designed solely for the male gaze. They would claim that a female viewer would only gain pleasure if they were to identify with a masculine view, objectifying Jennifer and her body. Mulveyan scholars fail to address female pleasure in film. Jennifer's everyday clothing is sexy but still casual, making her feel more like a regular teen girl. She typically wears low-rise jeans, low-cut tops, and lots of pink. Her style is very on-trend for the mid-2000s. Low-cut tops are her trademark because she views her chest as both a weapon and her greatest asset.
These are like smart bombs, okay? You point them in the right direction and shit gets real.
Early on, she uses her cleavage to get free drinks at the bar, and later she uses it to lure boys in to eat them. In the beginning of the movie, at the concert at the bar, Jennifer is dressed in one of her typical sexy outfits: a low-cut gray and black leopard print v-neck, a denim miniskirt, a leather belt with gold lettering saying love, big hoop earrings, patterned red lacy tights, and a white puffer coat. The entire scene goes back and forth between Jennifer's youngness and her sexual appeal. We see her getting X's on the back of her hands, showing she's underage. She then teases the boys from their school before getting nervous talking to the lead singer of the band. This is one of the few times in the film she's shown as a realistic, awkward teenage girl. Her love belt and white coat contrast her sexy look. White is a pure virginal color, and it also paints her as a sacrificial lamb. The white jacket serves two purposes. It shows her innocence, and it's the perfect backdrop for gore. It shows her visual transformation from teen girl to demon. Jennifer's style and looks, which were what made her powerful initially, cause the band to assume that she's a virgin and lead them to sacrifice her to the devil for the band's success. In Undressing Cinema, Brucey references a film called The Last Seduction, saying, "Women both on and off the screen have been over-identified with their image, and the self-conscious irony of a film like The Last Seduction, for example, begins to suggest that women are capable of using this enforced identification for their own ends." After Jennifer's transformation, her style gets increasingly more feminine as she gets more violent and more frightening. At Jennifer's most frightening, Needy imagines her lurking in the corner of her bedroom while she's having sex with her boyfriend Chip. Although we can't really see Jennifer's outfit, Sano explained that it's the girliest thing she wears in the film. Earlier in the story, the day after Jennifer's sacrificed, she wears a short-sleeved striped yellow and white sweatshirt with a denim microskirt. The yellow represents Jennifer's confidence and happiness, starkly contrasting her peers, who are all dressed in dark colors, after the fire. Yellow is also a hazardous color, silently warning her prey through her dress. The scene is the first sign of Jennifer losing her humanity. She's empowered by her body and her clothes, both before and after her assault. Female clothing in particular has created and reinforced stereotypes of female sexuality. Women in film noir, for example, hone their power through their clothes. Feminist film critic Mary Ann Doan examined questions of sexual difference and knowledge in her book Femme Fatales. Her power is a peculiar sort insofar as it is usually not subject to her conscious will, hence appearing to blur the opposition between passivity and activity. She is an ambivalent figure because she is not the subject of power, but its carrier. In a sense, she has power despite herself. These characters use the tools at their disposal, provocative clothing, to perform sensually to garner power and agency. The day after Jennifer kills one of her classmates, while she's wearing the yellow top, she stands out against the crowd of other students mourning, wearing dark colors. She later wears a hot pink sweatshirt with red hearts, pink heart earrings, skinny jeans, and pink espadrille wedges with ribbon tied around her ankles over her jeans. This is Jennifer's first truly girly outfit since she's been sacrificed. Her outfit is youthful while still communicating her sexuality. The sweatshirt's hearts and pinks and reds are reminiscent of love and softness, which harshly juxtaposes what made her look that beautiful. Jennifer's clothing communicates a sexual power. She dresses in layers when she's hunting her prey, boys, and she preys on their desire for her body by slowly removing layers as a sensual distraction. Munich argues that nakedness is eroticized by clothing. We never truly see Jennifer naked, although it is implied throughout the film. We see her carefully unzip her sweatshirt when she kills Jonas, and we see her swim naked through a lake shortly after. However, we never see her actual body. Her nakedness is all implied and therein eroticized. When she kills Colin, she only takes off her sweatshirt. She keeps her clothes on as a form of vengeance. She tricks these boys by luring them into what they think is the perfect situation, making them vulnerable, and then killing and eating them. Feeding on boys keeps Jennifer beautiful. When she doesn't feed, she begins to decay. The learned female fascination with image ties back to Lacan's mirror phase. Young women are expected to maintain a feminine appearance and attractiveness from an early age. Femininity as a social construct has made regular human bodily rituals taboo. Breaching boundaries is not sexy. A lived-in body is not hot. Any movement away from this tightly policed regime of femininity is framed as a lack and failure rather than agency and transgression. This connects to female clothing and what influences what women wear and how they are costumed in film. As scholar Jennifer Craik said, "Through clothes, we fabricate ourselves. We and filmmakers use clothing to communicate who we are and allow us to develop our identities and sense of self." When Jennifer's hungry, she wears more comfortable, less revealing clothes in dull colors. The first time we see her hungry, she wears a purple crew neck to school, highlighting the dark circles under her eyes and making her features appear more sunken. The second time we see her hungry, she wears a white crop top, a beige cropped sweatshirt, and her low-rise jeans to kill Colin. This is sexier than her previous outfit, but it's still comfortable. Jennifer expresses her discomfort with breaching these unsexy boundaries. She is incredibly down on herself for wearing a less sexy and imperfect look. Although her lived body comes from her demonic power and not human bodily rituals, they provide an analogy for the policing of femininity. The final time we see Jennifer hungry is both the opening and the ending scene to the movie. Jennifer lays in bed, chewing on her hair with blood in her teeth, watching an exercise infomercial with a look of self-loathing. She wears another purple top with shorts and leg warmers over her socks while she flips through and draws on her high school yearbook. At this point, she can't be bothered to appeal to the male gaze or to maintain her appearance. She's too weak. Instead, she rots both literally and figuratively. Jennifer's relationship with Needy also ties into Foucault's relationship between knowledge and power. Foucault aimed to answer two questions. How is power exercised and what are its effects? What is power and where does it come from? He connects knowledge to power much like Friedrich Nietzsche. Foucault argues that power and knowledge directly imply one another. There is no power relation without the correlative constitution of a field of knowledge. To answer Foucault's question in the context of Jennifer's body, Jennifer exercises her power through how she styles herself. Her power comes from her looks and her mysterious persona. She's a modern femme fatale. Her power comes from her knowledge of what men want from her and what they think of her. Jennifer uses her clothing as a source of control over herself as well as Needy. She reinforces rules for what Needy can and cannot wear.
Wear something cute meant something very specific in Jennifer speak. It meant I couldn't look like a total zero, but I couldn't upstage her either. I could expose my stomach, but never my cleavage. Tits were her trademark.
Stano described this dynamic saying, "It was okay for her to wear that tank top when she's making out with Chip, but because there was that rule, she had to put a t-shirt on underneath. She was Jennifer's ragdoll, and she was taken advantage of until she took the power into her own." We only ever see Needy in trendier, revealing pieces when she's away from Jennifer, usually with Chip. Needy's regular dress is casual, modest, and practical. Her clothes reflect her dorkiness and positive outlook. Needy's most iconic costume is her spring formal dress. Diablo Cody described the dress as a fucking afterbirth of a dress in the script. The dress is an unflattering, absurdly puffy pink 80s prom dress. Needy's dress is a strong visual contrast from Jennifer's simple, dainty gown. This is the first time in the movie that Needy's costume demands attention to her and upstages Jennifer. Jennifer wears a white gown with black lace trimming and white opera gloves to the spring formal. The white is meant to make her appear unassuming and innocent, with the black detailing hinting at her dark intentions. The amorphous silhouette makes her appear ghostly. Like Jennifer's white jacket from the beginning, the white dress and gloves are intentionally white to show blood and gore. When Jennifer is waiting for Needy in her bedroom, she wears Needy's Evil Dead shirt without asking. This is another example of Jennifer's control over Needy. She's waiting for Needy wearing underwear, crew socks, and Needy's t-shirt. She arrived in pants, but she removed them to seduce her like she does with her prey. They both wear their BFF necklaces, but Needy's is hidden throughout the majority of the film, while Jennifer frames hers with her low-neck tops. Jennifer fidgets with it throughout the movie, showing her possessiveness and control over Needy. When Needy finally kills Jennifer, she symbolically tears off Jennifer's necklace, causing Jennifer to accept her fate. Needy was the only person who saw her as a human being, and once she lost Needy, she had nothing left to live for. The necklace as a costume piece is a form of nonverbal communication telling the audience that Needy has not only killed Jennifer, but also their friendship. The act of ripping it off subverts Jennifer's clothing rules. Needy is finally able to enact control over Jennifer's clothing. When Needy is attacking Jennifer, we see her most powerful look. She wears a black sleeveless hoodie over an orange jumpsuit, she was previously in a mental institution, with bunny slippers. This pared-down look acknowledges her whimsy through her slippers while also wearing a functional prison-adjacent outfit. She's become empowered by trusting her gut, which Jennifer was never able to do. Now she's empowered. Jennifer and Needy's costume evolution throughout the film communicates their shifting power dynamics and Jennifer's dark descent into demonhood. She goes from a sexualized regular teen girl to a sexualized monster who uses her objectification to get what she wants before Needy ultimately reclaims the power in the relationship, fighting and killing her. Priscilla and Jennifer's body are strong examples of the value of costume design in film and how it communicates female agency. Traditional Lacanian film analysis allows us to understand the female protagonist's identity formation, but we are able to see how they develop power and agency using Foucault's post-structuralist ideas surrounding power, knowledge, and discourse. Laura Mulvey's feminist film criticism opened important doors in feminist film analysis, unpacking the significance of the male gaze in film, and in this context, in female characters' costuming. Costume design is a powerful tool in film, and it deserves more recognition in film studies. Incorporating additional frameworks, such as Foucault's, into existing film criticism and analysis allows us to get a deeper understanding of characters and their development through their clothing. Although many contemporary film scholars have begun to broaden film studies away from Lacan and Mulvey's concepts, there is still significant work to be done to reshape the status quo of critical film studies. It was difficult to decide on films for this video, which is indicative of the lack of films that successfully and effectively communicate female agency through costume. Strong female characters, as well as their costume designers, deserve recognition for the complexities of their character development and their agency.